Hello, I'd like to call the January 18th meeting to order. Can we have the announcements?
Go on the wall and then get the guys.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. Copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby of this conference room. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please write your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the lobby. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please sign in on that same sheet. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available in the lobby. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Welcome, everyone. We will start with the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission agenda. There are no minutes for approval. So the first consideration is the one-step final plat for Lakeside at Mooring, second edition. Anybody on the commission want to hear that case? And anyone in the audience wish to hear that case? Seeing none, we'll take that by consent. Item 2.2, one-step final plat, the Gateway Center, fourth edition. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to hear that case? We'll take that by consent. Okay, public hearing, vacation items. City vacation of platted front setbacks to address grading and lot configuration issues on 7 lots zoned SF5, single-family residential, generally located south of West Central Avenue and west of North 119th Street West. Anyone on the commission wish to hear that? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to hear that case? Seeing none, we'll take that by consent. Case number 4 is a zoning case, city, from SF5, single-family residential, to TF3, two-family residential, located at south of Murdoch and west of Zoo Boulevard on North Mount Carmel. Anybody on the commission want to hear that case? Anybody in the audience wish to hear that case? We'll hear that case. Case number 5, which is 00057, city zone change from L1 Limited Industrial, LI Limited Industrial to CBD Central Business District. Anyone wish to hear that case on the commission? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to hear that case? Okay, we'll take that by consent. Do we have a motion?
I move that we take items 2-1, 2-2, you want them all together or separate? Item 3-1 and case number 5 for approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. McKay, seconded by Bill Johnson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll hear case number 4. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave Yearup, planning staff. This is a request to rezone property. There are 5 platted lots. It should note on the agenda that this is actually east of Zoo Boulevard, not west. That was a mistake on our part. This is the property on the east side of Mount Carmel. We're between Elm and Murdoch. There are 5 platted lots that are zoned single family. SF5, the request is to rezone this property to TF3 in order to be able to construct duplexes on the property. With the staff report, we actually provided you a copy of the proposed layout of how the duplexes will be done on these 5 lots. There's 125 feet of frontage that would be broken into 2 62.5-foot wide parcels that would then be occupied by a duplex each for a total of 4 units. You can see from the map immediately to the north, 3 lots is some TF3 zoning. There's also a lot zone TF3 at Murdoch and at Mount Carmel. There are also duplex zones that exist on the south side of Elm Street, further east of Mount Carmel, and then as you get further east over towards North Edwards, there's TF3 zoning. This is an aerial of the property. The lot is virtually vacant. The DAB heard this last night, recommended approval 6-1, and one of the things that was made knowledgeable to us is that these lots, this property has been vacant for approximately 10 years or a little longer, and there's been nothing on the property at all. You can see from the aerial, we have a number of other single-family homes in the area. The property is located in an area that's identified as appropriate for residential development, and as noted in the staff report, what's proposed is consistent with the layout. This is the material and information provided by the applicant that shows what the front of the duplexes would look like. Each of them will have attached garages on the front. He actually provided a copy of the floor plans showing how each duplex would lay on the lot, and then parcels to show how it would sit in relationship to the street. The street would be to here, the left side of the drawing. This is the north unit, this is the south unit, they look identical. Aerial photo, this shows the property as it exists now. You can see that it's vacant. This is taking, again, from Mount Carmel, looking kind of southeast towards the property. The home immediately to the north, there is an existing fence that's along their property line. You can see the curb cut that exists that would have to be taken out. New curb cuts would come in. A shot that looks a little further to the southeast towards the property. This is the appearance of the home immediately across the street west from where the location is proposed. Staff is recommending approval. The conditions are outlined in the staff report. I would be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, agent or applicant?
You want to say anything? Okay, The applicant's deferred, so.
Questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this case? Please come forward and state your name and address.
I'm Vivian Stulsatz. I live at 789 North Mount Carmel here in Wichita. I'm speaking on behalf of my family and 17 so far other families in that area, and we are protesting the development with the duplexes. Our community is an older neighborhood with a few younger families sprinkled in. It is primarily a 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. area. We do not take kindly to loud noises, screaming, guns waved in the air, and shootings. Bottle rockets and Roman candles are shot off during the year. Gangs, drugs being sold, meth labs established, kids using our street as a drag strip, and there is stealing. We have had all of that, and we don't want to go through that again. We've worked hard with the police to clean up our area. This happened at the duplexes across from our property. Everything is peachy keen at first, but it goes downhill from there. There are duplexes and apartments around us, and the police are there all the time. You can ask any of the residences that live next to them. It is common knowledge, and the Officer C. Byers of the Wichita Police Department stated at District 6 Advisory Board meeting last night, January 17th, that when you have people in close proximity to each other, you have problems. They can't get along with each other. The simplest act can cause a death. It doesn't matter how much you charge for your rent. Why anyone would want to promote this is beyond comprehension. We already have traffic problems on Mount Carmel. It's likely a drag strip. They start at 9th and see how fast they can go down to Central. A lot of the families park on the streets, so it's already congested. It is a main street to go to Barney's discount store on Central for groceries and pharmacy. We do not have sidewalks, so you walk in the street, and elderly people in electric wheelchairs also have to use the street. We like to ride our bikes, but there have been many near accidents. When the trains block Central at Zoo Boulevard and 9th and Zoo Boulevard, people use Mount Carmel as a thoroughfare to try to beat the train before it gets to the next exit. You have to be extra cautious when backing out of your driveway. It is unsafe. Many of us have had their mailboxes knocked down because of inattentive driving, so you can see how bad it is for anyone in the street. Adding 4 more families, and if each family has 2 or 3 cars, that's 8 or 12 cars, that would make it more congested and unsafe. Putting in a 2-family dwelling would devalue our properties. Most people don't care when they rent a place. You begin to see garbage, broken down cars, junk, yards not groomed, stray animals, rats, snakes. You may have a family that does care, but then you also have one next to them that doesn't care. And that is a big problem, and it grows into a major problem that includes the police. Instead of duplexes, there could be a nice home or 2 put in there for a single family and a nice yard for kids to play.
Excuse me, ma'am, your time is up. Do you need more?
Could I please?
30
I have
seconds?
All right, thank you. Instead of duplexes, there could be a nice home or 2. People don't want to live next to duplexes and apartments because there is no control over health, safety, and welfare of their families. We have an older area, but it is being cleaned up. In the last several years, houses and lots have been upgraded with paint, siding, windows, planting of trees, grass, fences, and lighting. We own our homes, so we care. We are in the Riverwalk beautification area, so we think the city would want to help us and thank us. We want to have better living conditions, not worse. The city has a responsibility to its citizens to take care of all of them, not cater to a few for a profit. And the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare is the basis for zoning. It just wouldn't be feasible to put in duplexes. It would cause more problems than it would solve. I want to thank the Planning Commission for allowing me to speak on the rezoning case of ZON 2017-00056. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker?
Anybody have any questions?
David?
Ma'am, I'm curious, why do you think that property has remained vacant all these years?
Well, for the first thing, the person that bought it paid too much for the lot. I'm not for sure. I was told that I think it went for $38,000. There was a house on it at the time, and they tore it down. And that person that bought it lived in California, so I don't know if it was because they moved to California and weren't going to live here any longer that it remained vacant.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, anybody else in the audience like to speak? Please state your name and address when you come to the podium.
My name is Mike Beaker, and I live at 785 North Mount Carmel. I live right next door to Dawn and Vivian, the lady that was just talking. There is a lot of activity with, we have apartments that are 2 houses up from where they're wanting to build them. And by putting in more apartments on the street, it's going to make for a lot more activity. I figure there's probably going to be, there's maybe 20 more people right across the street. My main concern is people cut down our street to avoid the train, and they can't get through Central, they go down 9th and they come down Mount Carmel, and they're driving extremely fast. Well, if you have 4 families there with kids, I think it's going to make for a more dangerous situation for kids coming out into the street, just a more accident-prone area. But I was hoping also to see that somebody eventually build a house in there, but not for 4 apartments to go in, 3 bedrooms. You know, there's going to be a lot of kid activity, and I think there is going to be problems. Thank you.
Questions for the speaker? Okay. Next speaker, please. No one else is going to speak? Okay. We'll bring it back to the commission. Oh. He didn't want to spot, okay. Any rebuttal? Any rebuttal from the applicant? Wait a minute. Ma'am, excuse me. It's time now for rebuttal. Is there anyone from the applicant or owner want to talk?
Howdy, I'm Craig Harms. I will be the builder associated with the applicant in this property. We have been doing these projects since the start of 2013, going in and I've had some cases before you guys before doing the same thing, rezoning to 2-family. You know, I can see a lot of the concerns as far as the traffic problems and that type of stuff. You know, I don't know that that necessarily has any merit to do with adding, 4 additional residences. You know, you could see a minimal traffic increase. As far as people parking on the street, each one of these units is going to have a 2-car garage, in addition to 35 feet of approach and driveway. These are not cheap units. They're about $250,000 per building, or $150,000 per townhome. And I like to emphasize the fact that these are, in fact, townhomes. These are places that families live in. They're not apartments. All the ones that we build have fenced-in backyards, areas for kids to play in, and that type of stuff. And the rents that we get are much greater than the 1 and 2 bedroom, multiple story apartment complexes. I mean, these rents that we get from some projects that we've done over within, I'd say, 2 square miles. We've in the past 4 years, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're working on an 8th one farther north on Mount Carmel. They rent for $1,000 to $1,200 a month. So we have pretty good tenants. I mean, these aren't tenants that are if anything, they bring up the neighborhood. And just kind of looking through my notes of some of the concerns there.
Need another minute?
I'm sorry.
You need another minute to finish? Your time's up.
No, I have just in summary, this has been going on kind of, this infill has been great for kind of these dilapidated areas, and raises the tax base and does a great job at providing affordable, nice, new housing. And it does increase, the argument that was made is it devalues the properties. Well, a $250,000, structure being put in definitely brings up the values of the neighborhood by it being a brand new building. So with that, if there's any questions.
Questions for the owner applicant? David?
Or if you'll confirm, my understanding is then you would have 2 off-street parking bays in your paved area in addition to those inside the garage. Is that correct, per unit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Second question is, the value of the lot was mentioned. Does it seem only viable financially to develop these with duplex, given the cost that's gone into getting the particular property?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, this is,
No, you'll need to come to the podium.
I'll go ahead and hop in real quick. So, I don't know where the value of the purchase of the land came from before, without
Sir,
going into too much
Can you
detail.
state your name and address?
I'm Philip Rufo, I'm applicant, and the value of the land is significantly less than what was stated as far as purchase price goes. So it's completely feasible, and all the money and dollar signs make sense for something of this nature. They were asked about, why won't you put single-family homes in there? There's 5 lots. We could put plenty of single-family homes in there, but the bottom line is I keep them and rent them. So regardless of what's going in there as far as structure goes, it's going to be a rental situation. So I just want to make that known that this isn't, we could leave the zoning the way it is and still build on it, and it's not going to make a difference on the kind of traffic that's going to be going through that particular area, especially if it's happening now. And what the cops are so, aggressive to say it's a bad spot to build. Well, why aren't they sitting on the corner getting people for speeding through there then, right? So I just want to make that known that regardless of zoning, regardless of structures going up, it's going to be rental. So just want to make
Just
that
one
clear.
final question. Who's going to, once it's all said and done, who's going to manage the property?
I actually own the property management company. I manage duplexes in Derby, manage my own properties. I buy and sell as a real estate agent, and have my own properties as well. So I'm doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Ma'am, our first speaker, I had a question for you. I was a little unclear what the pictures showed. Did you want to explain that to us?
Yes, they said there's only one home across from that property.
But please use the mouse
Oh,
and the mic.
thank you. Okay. They said there's this one home across from that vacant lot. There's a gentleman sitting back here that also lives across from that vacant lot, and he is in this house. So there's more than just one family that's going to be concerned with this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We bring it back to the commission for discussion. Mr. Foster?
I've asked this before, but we're hoping to get some guidance from the infill committee at some point on this. And we actually had a case not long ago that helped me in understanding these. that once you get outside the established central area, then it's a more important question next to SF5 zoning. And here we have a situation, we're definitely in the established central area, so this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The traffic is certainly an issue, but I think that's been addressed relative to the number of single-family units that could be developed relative to these duplex. So, Mr. Richardson, or I believe Mr. McKay, you're on that committee. Do you have some insights that might guide us?
As far as I know, we haven't come to a conclusion yet. I'm sorry, I hate it. It's not, there's 42 people on that committee, so it's a little slow in reaction.
Well, I think the idea behind the infill committee is to look at duplex zoning and would it be allowed by right or two-family residences in this urban core area, provided there were some design controls to make sure it was properly done in relationship to the neighbors, as well as accessory structures being considered in that same vein. To this point, we have not come to any conclusions. We've seen some suggestions and ideas, but we're kind of off on another project right now, so I'm not quite sure where that's going to end up. Maybe Dale could, or Scott could shed some light on.
Conjecture at this point.
Yeah.
So back to our case. Do we have a motion?
Move we approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Green and second by Mr. Dool. Now's the time for discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Oh, okay. So that's 4. 11-1 passes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
does the speakers know the right to opposition letter? Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else to come before MAPC, we'll adjourn. And we'll now move to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I call that meeting to order. I don't think we have any minutes for that meeting, for the previous meeting. So the first case is BZA 2017-00058, and it's the applicant or agent is at Central and Vassar Development, LLC, Paul Gray. The request is to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces by 32%. Current zoning is limited commercial, subject to protective overlay 134. Dale, would you like to present?
Dale Miller, planning staff. Members of the board, staff is asking for you to consider a deferral on this request. We were apprised of information late yesterday afternoon that makes some of the statements in the staff report erroneous or at least misleading about some of the circumstances. Now, the request itself is accurate, the reduction by 32%. That part of it is accurate. However, some of the background information in terms of attempts to get off-site parking, that we've discovered that information is incorrect in the staff report. I see there are a number of people here to speak, so depending on your preference, you could take testimony and then defer action on it to another date, or you could hear the whole thing and make the decision today. That's entirely up to you. But before I proceed, I just want you to know that staff is asking for the deferral in order to address issues in the staff report.
Or we could act on the deferral and then take testimony if we wanted to.
Correct.
Question, if we hear testimony today and take action at a later date, will any more testimony be allowed at that point?
It'd be my opinion, yes.
I think we should delay everything, because if there's testimony on erroneous information, then inaccurate, and so.
Let me
I'll
ask the
rather-
audience, would any of you be opposed to delaying the testimony till the later date? Seeing no objection, I will take a motion.
Move we defer.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Green, seconded by Ms. Miles.
We have a date.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. We
Date
need a
certain?
2 weeks, the next meeting would be satisfactory. Does that work for, and the applicant, or, yeah.
Okay, the motion is to defer for 2 weeks. Mr.
Dale, we heard this before, there was some controversy about Central and the light and stuff there. Has that all been taken care of? If not, I'd like for it to.
We can have that information for you at the next hearing, yes.
Okay. We had a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passed unanimously. And the BZA meeting is adjourned.